Hello, internet world, Facebook, YouTube. I am here live. I'm Kelly Abanda, and I'm here live with Heidi, who is joining me from Canada. Where in Canada are you?
Toronto.
In Toronto, yes. And if you are joining us right now, you may have seen I just did a Facebook Live from my personal page, and I broke down crying because I'm currently in Minneapolis. And as the world knows, we're dealing here with another incidence of a Black man being killed unnecessarily by the police. And so there's all this stuff that's going on around, and I am definitely carrying it really heavily. And so while I was doing my live right before this, I just let people know that, you know, one of the things I thought about not doing this live and not having this conversation with Heidi about this pivot workshop that I had done that she participated in, and then I'm going to do again and open to the public, because I had this thought of like, what if this is not important right now? And then I had this inner intuitive voice that said, but wait, what if this is exactly what needs to happen? Because there's somebody out there, or multiple people out there, who have it inside of them to rise up and to do something about justice in a new way. And what they need is something like this course to help them get the courage to make it happen. And if that's the case, I can't back down. And so that's one thing that I said, look, I'm just going to go live and we're going to share the story of the impact and what it's done for Heidi, so that you can start thinking about what it might do for you. And we'll see what happens. You know, maybe somebody's going to tune into this that needs to hear this message right now, and they're going to have some impact that's going to make a difference in the future of racial justice. And I would be so honored to be a part of that journey. And then the other piece is that I have now committed that I will give proceeds from this course to local Minneapolis organizations who are doing like boots on the ground work to make justice happen here in this city where we need it. And so those are small ways that I am looking at how can I be a part of making a difference. And I will keep posting on social media. I will keep being a voice, but these are extra ways that I can say, look, I will take what's in my hand and put it into the basket. And so I encourage everybody to be doing that. You know, look at what's around you, what's in your hand, so that you can say, okay, I may not be able to solve this all by myself, but if we all start putting in what we can, we're going to get much closer. And we can't stay silent, and we can't do nothing because we can't do everything. So what can you do? So with that being said, Heidi, thank you so much for being here and for, you know, just being willing to, you know, in such a tense time to have a conversation about this. I really appreciate you. Can you tell us a little bit about you and, you know, what is lighting up your life, or what is like lighting your fire in a good or bad way these days?
Sure. So I would say that, you know, coming from sort of the background that I'm from, I'm used to living life according to like a whole bunch of shoulds. You know, we're always kind of focused on our routine, focused on what we're supposed to be doing. And I think we've all been there. Like, we've had this checklist of our life that we think we need to fulfill to sleep easy at night. And so many things on those checklists are often actually inconsequential when things like what we've like experience today, or what we're learning about is happening today. It seems so inconsequential in comparison to, you know, what's really going on in the world. So I think, you know, for me, just learning more about ways that I can spread love, support justice initiatives, those kinds of things, like be a force for social change in a way that in some ways, I guess, being sort of in that corporate world or being in that 9-to-5 world doesn't always allow you within the realm of your responsibilities. If you only stuck to those responsibilities, doesn't really give you an opportunity to fully invest in those areas of life. So I think for me, discovering new ways for myself in terms of using what's in my hands, you know, what I have, which is gifts of love and compassion and arts and energy healing and, you know, spirituality, and using those gifts that I've been given, how can I serve the world better? So that's kind of where I was at, knowing what gifts I was holding in my hands before taking the pivot workshop, and then not being quite sure what to do with those gifts for a long time.
Yeah. So you knew that there was something on the inside of you. The question was, what do you do with that? How do you bring them out from
Yeah.
the inside? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was really difficult because, again, with what I was saying, a lot of times what we have to offer the world doesn't always fit neatly within our job descriptions.
Mhm.
And we are so attached almost, or conditioned to be attached to those job descriptions, that we don't see our identity outside of that. But
Yeah.
when we realize that we do have an identity outside of that, it feels like a part of us has been missing, or like we awaken to this new part of ourselves that actually was always there, but we just kind of killed it a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of living in that routine and checking off those boxes. So I think, Kelly's workshop, really kickstarted me out of that rut of sort of not acknowledging the parts of me that needed to be acknowledged, that needed to space to shine. And I think that was something that the workshop really helped me do.
Yeah, I love hearing that, because that is really like, that's what my heart is about. It's to draw out, I believe that every person has something on the inside that has been waiting to come out. And we either, like you said, we disconnect from it because it's not our job. And so we think, well, I don't know how to bring that out, or we stop trusting our intuition. And our intuition is trying to speak to us all the time and tell us, which direction to go. But just like I posted about this a couple of weeks ago too, just the idea of like, if you looked at your intuition like a friend, and if you had a friend that, you were always turning them down, they're inviting you out for coffee, they're like, let's meet for Zoom, let's have a conversation, I want to talk to you. And you're always like, no, I'm too busy. I hear you, but I don't want to listen. How much longer is that friend going to keep coming back to you? Not for very long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we do that with our intuition all the time. It's trying to speak to us and we're like, well, just wait, or that can't be right because it doesn't make logical sense. So we push that intuition away. And it isn't that our intuition stops speaking totally, but it's not as loud. It's not going to keep pushing. Like if we're telling it we don't want to hear it, why would it keep speaking? Right. Mm-hmm. And so trusting that what you hear, the gifts that you have, what you want to bring out needs to come out. That it's not selfish to do it, that it's not stupid to do it, that it's not like a risk to do it, but it just has to happen because it was put in you for a reason. Mm-hmm. And so many of us have something inside that we've been pushing down. Either we're afraid of failing, we're afraid of looking silly, it seems too big, why would we do it? So if you think about your story, what do you think were the things that kept you from bringing it from the inside out?
That's a good question. I think one of the biggest things, actually, and I have this written down actually in my notes, that like the fear of disappointing people in your life when you choose to take a leap. Like, I think those structures that we put in place aren't just there because, some unknown being put them there. They're there because we've developed them as a community, as a society, where we've valued certain things over other things. And as a result, we have those structures in place saying this is important, this is less important, and this is not important, but those structures are not always correct. And I think that the fear of disappointing people who have bought into those structures and who may be comfortable living a life within that box is incredibly scary. Being someone that is like, actually, I don't fit in that box, and I am kind of tired of living in this box, and I want to step outside of it. But I think that fear of disappointment was big for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a really great way to say that. And there are so many different ways of thinking about that disappointment too. It could be people it could be people you don't know, it could be your own, like disappointing your own self. One of the things that I talk about in the course is about like recognizing that sometimes what you thought life should look like is not what it actually should look like, and letting go of what you expected it to look like, if that's not really what your life should look like. Not just because it should be that way. And so, like coming back to this issue of justice, I think, we could say like, yes, the world should be a just place. It isn't. Mm-hmm. And so we could either keep fighting to say, well, it should be, so I'm going to live as if it is. But the reality is it isn't. And
Mhm.
so let's come back and be like, all right, then what can I do about that? And what's in my hand to do something about that? So you took this workshop, which I did as part of a larger retreat. And that workshop helped you to start to pull out what was on the inside. So tell me about what started to unfold as you brought it out and listened to that voice that had been speaking to you, but you weren't bringing out.
Well, I think for me, I've always felt sort of this calling seems like a very lofty word for it. And I think that scares a lot of people too when we think about it that way. But for me, I'm still in this place where I'm not ready to call it a calling, but this feeling and intuition inside of me that tells me, you know what, like, I think part of why you're placed here in this world is to be a healer. And I think that was always very difficult for me to understand, being someone, that associated healing with medicine, or, didn't know a whole lot about complementary medicine and all those kinds of things. I was like, okay, so I have this calling to be a healer, but the gifts that I have to do with arts. Like, how do those two things converge? Like, I'm not really sure about that. And I think I still haven't necessarily seen, I think there's still so much room for the arts to grow as a form of like a healing modality that we haven't explored yet. And part of it is because of the kind of lack of funding or the lack of resources that artisans have to actually promote this way of healing and bringing communities together. So I think for me, I felt sort of having kind of grown in my creativity this year through my day job, which is as a teacher, I realized there's actually so much more I have to give in terms of that creative side of myself. Like, I kept trying to limit it to something that was understandable to the world. Like, oh, you're a teacher, you can be creative within that bubble, and then, that's enough, but I'm like, actually, no, like, I have so much more outside of that world to give in terms of my creativity. And I wanted to kind of find ways to connect that creative side of myself and that healer calling and bring it together. So that's sort of what I've been exploring in my own life. And through the retreat, and then particularly through Kelly's workshop, just facing that calling inside of me and giving it importance, I think. Where before I was always kind of like, I can ignore it. But then now being like, you know what, like, it's been there for so long. Like, you need to stop thinking of it as just this thing you think about and start embracing it as your calling.
Yeah, that's so good. And what do you think? Because you were talked about, like, the word calling feels heavy. And I think you're right for so many people. What made the shift for you to be like, you know what? Yeah, this is a calling.
I think realizing that, well, part of it is also disassociating yourself from your identity as job. Like, job is part of your identity. Your identity is not your job, and your job is not your identity. It's not, like, that's not it. So first of all, kind of deconstructing that, and then realizing, and I think in moments like this, when we talk about what's going on in the world, in the news, and we get to this point in the world where we're like, okay, this is a bigger situation than as a person I know how to handle. You start to realize that humans are put on this earth for so much more than putting on a suit and going to work, or putting on your khaki pants and going to work at this point with our business casual. It's moments like this, and it's sad that it takes moments like this for us to realize that. But it is like, even with what's been going on in the pandemic, that's when people are starting to realize, oh my goodness, like, my identity has been so chained to this, like 40-hour work week, that I've forgotten that my existence is for so much more than that 40 hours that pays for all the other things that I'm actually supposed to be living for.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was, shifting that understanding of self and being like, okay, you know what, like, you're put here on this earth for so much more than just the roles and responsibilities you've taken on or that you've been given. You're here to be a person that has power to enact change, that has the creativity to make things happen, and you need to do something about it. So that was kind of where it came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That, it warms my heart so much to hear that. And tell us, like, I was amazed when you connected with me and told me what happened in the span of just a few days. So from going like, how long had this been on the inside of you?
I feel like a lot of people will relate to this part of literally having things dormant inside of them for years.
Yes.
Like, I think there are so many people out there that are like walking, like, volcano is not a good metaphor for it, but you know, like that idea of dormancy, of something has been building inside of them for so long that when you finally let it out, you'd be surprised at how quickly change can happen.
Yes.
Because you've been called to do this. You've been given the gifts, the calling, whatever you need to be equipped internally to do it. And all you need to do is actually embody it and express it. So I think for me, that was why it kind of was very quick. So just to kind of tell you that story. So I took Kelly's workshop on the first day of the retreat that we were attending. And within 3 days, so in her workshop, she gives this sort of like the strategy, which I'm sure she'll tell you more about in the course, but this idea of 3 and 7, like taking 3 small steps within 7 days or every 7 days towards your goal. So I'm like, okay, that's manageable. I can do that. Like, and that's what I really appreciated, having that structure, because as much as I'm a dreamer, I'm also somebody that needs a lot of structure. So I'm like, okay, I needed that structure to be like, okay, I can handle that. 3 and 7 is fine. Like, I'm not going to try and reach this gigantic become a healer. Like, that's not a step. I don't even know how to do that. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so easy. Just read a book and it's done.
I know, right? Just, yeah. So I was like, okay, I can take 3 small steps. I guess the first step I have to do is figure out, you know, like what exactly I want to offer. Like, in terms of, if I am bringing something into the world, will it be a service? Will it be a workshop? Will it be a this or a that? What is my vision statement? Or artist statement, for those of you that are more artistically inclined? Like, what is that driving mission that will bring you to enact this thing that you want to create, whether it's an experience or a service or a piece of work? Like, I always want to tell people, like, art is not confined to a canvas, guys. Like, there's so much that people don't understand about their own creativity. So I think kind of tapping into that and writing it all out. And within 3 days, I had a website built, 2 workshops planned, and I currently have 6 sold out workshops on mindfulness and art making, which is insane. Like, this is like been 2 weeks, guys. Like, this is not like, you know, a month even. It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's insane. And I love how you just said that too, about all it took was you, because this has been building up and building up and building up. And all it took was getting some very small things in action, and then stuff started to really come together. I can honestly tell you, I don't know that I've talked to anybody who has made so much happen in 3 days. That's incredible. And it shows the power of, if you just start taking some steps. And it's such a key how you talked about that 3 and 7. I find that all the time when I'm coaching people or leading workshops, that we can, and I do it to myself too, like, we can look so much at the really big picture of where we want to get to and feel like, well, that's so far away, I'm never going to get there. Well, okay, first of all, you'll never get there if you don't take a step. But you don't have to get there in a step. So just start taking some action. And so I love that you took that to heart and were like, all right, here's the 3 things. And then you just ran with it. And to have those workshops sold out, like, it's sold crazy. Out. Yeah. Like, you weren't even sure if people were going to like the subject.
Yeah, I wasn't.
And they're sold out.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's wild. Like, I've had to add dates because, like, people are like, I want to come, but I'm on the wait list. I'm like, okay, I'll just add a date for you. So I'm like, okay. So it's been crazy. And I think that's the thing that I realized as I was kind of reflecting on this conversation that Kelly and I were going to have. Like, I think we don't realize how much people need what you have to offer until you actually offer it. And in order to do that, you have to act on it. Because people don't know what your intention is on the inside if you're not embodying it on the outside. You can walk around all day on the street and be like, well, I intend to do this. And great, that's wonderful. But, like, how are people going to connect to you and receive what you have to offer if you don't actually offer it? And I think that was the thing that I realized through this journey, like, oh my goodness, like there are things that people are longing to have in their lives, experiences or things they're hungering for, that it could be you that could provide that for them. But they don't know that right now because we haven't done anything about it yet.
Yeah. So well said. Nobody can read my thoughts. Nobody can read my intentions and be like, oh, somebody's gonna walk up to you on the street. Hey, you kind of look to me like you're thinking about maybe doing these artistry mindfulness workshops. Is that right? Can I sign up?
Yeah.
No, like, that's not how it happens, right? We have to actually like put it out there. And I'm just so proud of you for, taking things to heart, because I mean, I'm guessing you've taken other workshops in the past, right? This isn't the first workshop you've ever taken. So what made this different for you that you were like, okay, I'm not just going to sit anymore, I'm going to do?
I think this is super exciting. I love talking about this because I think it's so important for a person like me to have the right blend when it comes to coaching. Like I've always had a difficult time connecting with people like coaches or things like that, because I'm always like, oh, like it's not quite the right fit for me. But for this particular course, I think it was like the mix of accountability and intuitive awareness. A lot of times you've got coaching that's on one end where it's sort of like heavy on the goal setting and you're like, okay, that's great. You're hammering me with all these things, but where's that space that I have to listen to what's going on the inside instead of trying to reach these benchmarks that it seems like I'm supposed to be hitting because that's the pathway that everyone on that path takes. So I think that mix of like having the space to cultivate intuitive awareness, and having Kelly, who herself is an intuitive, understand that path. And then also, that really grounded accountability, you need that. Like, no matter, what you're doing, you're never going to get it done if you don't have the structure and the accountability to get you on that road towards taking steps, right? So I think for me, having the mix of the two was really important, and this course offered both.
Yeah. And that's really important to me as, as a leader, as a coach. It's me embracing what, like you said, so I'm intuitive too, and trusting that I have an intuition that I should follow. But I never want to be like just inspirational or like, oh, just think about big dreams, without having something to ground it and make it concrete. And that's so important to me, because I know, as you have said, right, like you can have all the ideas that you want, you could set all the goals that you want, but if you're not acting, and statistics tell us that if you don't have accountability, your chances of reaching your goal are like 8%, less than 10, 8%. But if you get good accountability, which is why coaching works well, because you have consistent accountability, or even doing like group programs like this one will be, you've got somebody's going to be checking on you and asking how you're doing. That makes your likelihood of reaching your goal go into the 90%. So that's where I want to be. I want to be in that place. I want you to be in that place. I want everybody who's got something on the inside of them to be in the place of like, I have a 90% chance of making this happen, not 8. And it's a simple little step to make that shift. It's that accountability piece. So grounding it, not just staying in the clouds, and also not making goals for random goals. Like, right. Just like you could have just been like, well, 10 sounds like a great round number, so I'm going to do 10 workshops. But maybe that's not what was supposed to happen. Your 6 were supposed to happen. You're probably going to get to 10 because they keep selling out. So you're going to be there like in an instant. Do you know what's next for you after you get through this phase of getting these sold out workshops done?
Well, so I've been starting to think about it, and I actually really have this heart to work with professional carers, or people who are caring professionals, people who work in caring services. So we're like nurses, teachers, mental health therapists, things like that, to kind of start creating a safe space for them to process all of the sort of emotion that comes from working as a caring professional. So I'm currently planning a one-day writers retreat for that in July. It's going to be free or by donation, because for me, it's really important that things are affordable and accessible in terms of modalities that people can use for healing. So that's sort of the next step, is to kind of become more informed on how to do trauma care, how to, I guess, serve people who have worked with those in sort of vulnerable sectors or vulnerable populations, and how do we bring healing to both those who work tirelessly to support these kinds of initiatives and those that are in the recovery process themselves. So I'm very interested in blending sort of this new like realm of energy healing that I'm studying, and then the arts that I'm used to and I have a background in, as well as the mental health fields, like putting those all together and bringing those groups of people together, I think is really important to me. You know, realizing that teachers and nurses and mental health practitioners and energy healers, like we don't work in silos. Like we are all people who are working for the betterment of humanity, for you know, driven by compassion, wanting to make a difference. And I think bringing us together and hearing the ways that we have been influencing people's lives will be so healing for so many people.
Yeah, I love that. And I would love for you to drop, like, how could people find out about this if they're interested? So like people who are in in all of those professions you talked about. I actually had an idea as you were talking about, you know, I've been talking with friends who, you know, around this issue of what's happening right now, and like the issues around policing in the US particularly. But one of the things we talked about is there's not a great system for like police officers who maybe have dealt with trauma to understand how to really process that so it doesn't come up in their work, or even how to deal with other people who have had trauma. And so like there are so many places that I think what you're bringing could really serve and have an impact beyond those individual people. Because if they get to a healthy place and they can process, that impacts everybody that they're serving. Mm-hmm. And so imagine if what you're doing creates a space for somebody to heal so much that something terrible doesn't happen down the road because they're in a healthy place. Like if you would have just kept that on the inside, that would have never happened. Like you are doing it, girl. You are taking the steps, and you, like, I can't wait to hear the impact of, you know, what you're doing, the impact that has in ripples, because it will be not just the people that you are directly having at workshops and retreats, but the people that they impact. And I just, like, if there could be like a camera taking a snapshot of all the lives you're going to touch, it's so cool. And to think it started with just some simple questions and a simple system. Like I developed this 3L system to help people know if it's time to pivot. And so using those very simple tools, there's nothing complex about it. It wasn't like you had to get a PhD to understand, you know, what I was talking about, but just taking the time and reflecting and applying those tools to where you were at and then doing something about it. You're already here in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. Yeah. Like, what's going to happen in 2 years? It's crazy. So anybody who's watching this, like, think about the things that you have been holding inside of you. And what if a month from now, that's not just an idea that's been sitting on the inside of you, but it's a reality that's happening. And what the gifts that you have, what you have to say, what you have to do is impacting other people because you started acting on it. Like, what amazing things could be happening in this world if we all were doing that. Yeah, I'm so excited to see, you know, what might come from this opportunity. And so to let you guys who are watching know, I'm launching this, Is It Time to Pivot? So I did it in the retreat that Heidi was a part of. I did this just as like one small workshop. And what I'm doing is expanding it to a 3-day intensive. And we're going to have a private Facebook group where you'll have a chance to share and have accountability. We'll start building community as soon as people sign up. And then we're going to launch on June 10th. And we'll have 3 days together where we're going through that 3L system. You'll have reflective work to do. You can go, you know, you'll answer questions. You'll start bringing out the stuff that's on the inside. And I'll be there cheering you on and holding your hand that whole time. And just imagine, even after 3 days, what could happen as we bring this stuff out. And here is I'm doing this for $29. So I want to make sure it's very accessible for people. And then I also just told you at the beginning, I'm going to be donating proceeds from this first round of courses. The proceeds are going to be given to nonprofits who are doing racial justice work here in Minneapolis. And so it's like a double whammy. You're going to get what you need to start moving forward, and the money that you give is going to end up going to a good cause. So it's like a no-brainer. Like, get that thing out of the inside of you and get it out to the world, because the world is where it's going to have its impact. So, Heidi, what would you say to somebody who's like, I'm going to put the link, hold on, I just have to copy. I'm going to put the link in the comments so people get that. But what would you say to somebody who's like, I know I have something in me, but I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready.
Okay, the first thing I would say is yes, you are. And then the second thing I'd say is you need to take the leap. I mean, honestly, like the course is going to provide you the structure that you need to catch you if you feel like you're going to fall. Your job is to take the leap. Let everyone else around you, your community, people who support you, people who want to support you, do the work of catching you when you're scared, you're not sure. Let them be your safety net. Let this course kind of give you that structure, that safety net that you really need to, cling on to when you're jumping off the cliff. It's scary, but let that be your safety net and then just jump. That's what you need to do.
I love it. Yes. Yes. So I have this phrase that I say all the time. I think I probably said it in the course. I can't remember, but that magic only happens at the intersection of planning and leaping. And we've got to take that action. We've got to take a leap, because otherwise, if you think you can plan it all and there's going to be a perfect plan, you tell me, when in your life have you ever had a perfect plan and you start doing the plan and everything goes according to your perfect plan? It doesn't happen. So why with your dreams are you waiting for that to happen? It's not going to happen. You've got to take a leap. You've got to do it. And you are ready. You can do this, but you don't have to do it alone. So I'm so excited about what's going to come from this. And Heidi, I thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story. And I definitely want you to drop links. Can you just tell us verbally right now how people can connect with you, and then we'll drop your links in the chats as well so people can connect to you?
Sure. So right now you can find me on my personal website at studiohl.org, or you can find me on Eventbrite at studiohl. So if you just look up Studio HL on Eventbrite, you should be able to find the list of the workshops that I'm hosting.
Studiohl.org.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm just going to put that in the chat right now. And then feel free, you can always come back and put anything else you want in the chat. And if anybody is watching the replay of this and you've got questions for either Heidi or I, if you tag us in the comments, we'll come back around. And if you want to know more about what Heidi's doing, or if you want to know more about the Pivot, Is It Time to Pivot course, I did drop the link that you can go check out, to actually sign up. And then I will be sending out the invitation to anybody who signed up to join that Facebook group early next week. So we'll have time before the course actually launches to start to get to know each other and building that community. And I am honored to be a part of your journey, Heidi, and I will be honored to be a part of the people who are a part of this program too. Let's do this together and remind each other that, it's up to us to bring our gifts to the world, and then it's up to the world to take that where it's going to go. So our job isn't to figure that all out. Our job is to just start getting it out. Mm-hmm. And so let's do this together. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, other than if you guys are going to go to that course, I will see you there, because I think it's really important to continue to support each other as we're kind of making these leaps. That community is such a big piece, and I'm really looking forward to that community that you're going to host, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it, and I can't wait to see you there. And again, if you're watching the replay of this, or if you've got any questions, drop it in the comments. Go check out the Pivot course. If you've got questions about it, come back and ask me. I'm happy to answer them. And we're going to do this. We're going to set the world on fire in such a good way, because I know the people who are going to be drawn to this are the people who want to make a difference in the world, that they know, like you did, you've got something that will serve and help people who are serving and helping people. And if we start multiplying that, boom, just watch out. This is going to be fire. And so, yes, we get to do it together. And I just can't wait. So thank you so much for being with us today, Heidi. And thank you everybody else for watching and joining us. And we will be in touch. And check out that link. Check out Heidi's stuff. If you know what's good for you, do this now. All right. Bye, everybody.
See ya.